The unconfirmed leak suggests a massive, catastrophic turning point, and the collateral damage is going to include Michael and Jacinda in ways that will leave your jaw entirely on the floor. It seems like the impending chaos kicks off with Jacinda, who might just become the most crucial player in this entire twisted game. According to the hush hush rumor, Jacinda is going to be the very first person to stumble upon the dark, terrifying secret that Willow has been desperately trying to bury. High chances are this will not be a grand, explosive discovery right away, but rather a slow, creeping realization that makes the hair on the back of your neck stand up. What if Jacinda is simply walking past the room where Drew is recovering, completely unaware of the nightmare unfolding inside those four walls? The leak suggests she catches Willow acting incredibly suspicious, hovering over Drew with a chilling intensity that completely contradicts her usual sweet, caring demeanor. The truth might be way more complicated than just a lingering glance. It seems like Jacinda will witness Willow moving with calculated, predatory precision, double-checking the hallways, and ensuring no one is watching before she leans in close to her helpless victim. But the behind-the-scenes whisper goes even deeper into this terrifying encounter, setting the stage for a massive confrontation. What if Jacinda does not just see something, but actually hear something that freezes the blood in her veins? High chances are, in a brief, unguarded moment, Jacinda overhears Willow muttering to herself, speaking in cryptic, half-finished sentences that heavily hint at a truly sinister crime. It seems like Willow might be taunting Drew, whispering about how she holds his fragile life in her hands, or perhaps lamenting the fact that she has to keep him silenced to protect her own fabricated reality. The unconfirmed leak teases that Jacinda will hear just enough to realize that Willow is actively orchestrating a horrifying cover-up right under everyone's noses. What if Willow actually confesses her darkest sins out loud, believing Drew is completely incapacitated and unable to comprehend her sinister words? The truth might be way more complicated. Perhaps Willow is slowly losing her grip on reality, talking to Drew as if he is her captive, silent audience in a twisted one-woman show. Now, most people would panic, scream, or burst into the room to confront the villain, but it seems like Jacinda is going to play this incredibly smart and cautious. High chances are she realizes that confronting a desperate, cornered woman without any solid, undeniable proof would be a fatal mistake that could cost her dearly. What if Jacinda slowly backs away into the shadows of the corridor, holding her breath, terrified that a single creaking floorboard might alert the predator to her presence? The behind-the-scenes whisper indicates that Jacinda decides to gather reinforcements instead of acting on pure, adrenaline-fueled impulse. It seems like she knows exactly who needs to hear this devastating information, even if it is the absolute last thing he ever wants to believe about his family. The truth might be way more complicated, as Jacinda's fateful decision to involve Michael could be the very thing that seals their terrifying, inescapable fate. The unconfirmed leak points to a highly emotional, deeply tense confrontation between Jacinda and Michael that will have us all on the edge of our seats. High chances are, Jacinda pulls Michael aside into a secluded, private corner, her voice trembling uncontrollably as she recounts the horrific, chilling scene she just witnessed in that room. What if Michael completely rejects her claims at first, his eyes flashing with defensive anger? It seems like his initial reaction will be pure, stubborn denial. He loves Willow deeply, he has built an entire life and family with her, and the thought of his wife being a cold-blooded, manipulative monster is simply too much for his mind to process all at once. The truth might be way more complicated than simple denial, though. What if, deep down in his subconscious, Michael has already been noticing tiny, disturbing changes in Willow's behavior, and Jacinda's words are merely the horrifying confirmation of his darkest, most fiercely repressed fears? The hush-hush rumor suggests that despite his initial anger and utter disbelief, a toxic seed of doubt is firmly planted in Michael's mind. It seems like Jacinda will have to practically beg Michael to just look for himself, challenging him to prove her wrong if he is truly so confident in his wife's absolute innocence. High chances are, Michael reluctantly agrees to a secret, dangerous stakeout, praying to a higher power that Jacinda merely misinterpreted a completely innocent, routine medical procedure. What if they meticulously plan their covert surveillance, waiting for the perfect, silent moment when the house is quiet and Willow believes she is completely alone with the vulnerable Drew? The behind-the-scenes whisper implies that this joint investigation is going to be fraught with unbearable, suffocating tension that will radiate through the television screen. The truth might be way more complicated. Maybe Michael is secretly terrified of what he will actually find, his heart pounding violently in his chest as he and Jacinda tiptoe through the darkened corridors, edging ever closer to the room where Drew lies completely helpless. The unconfirmed leak paints a vivid picture of absolute suspense as Michael and Jacinda position themselves outside the room, peering through a slightly cracked door into the dim light. It seems like the writers are turning this drastic storyline shift into a phenomenal masterclass in psychological thriller mechanics, leaving the typical soap opera tropes far behind. High chances are the atmosphere will be suffocatingly quiet, amplifying every single breath and heartbeat. What if they watch Willow enter the room, her facial expression completely devoid of the warmth and maternal love she usually projects to the world? The hush-hush rumor dictates that they will see Willow drop her carefully constructed mask entirely, revealing a cold, calculating, dead-eyed stranger that Michael barely even recognizes. The truth might be way more complicated. Perhaps Willow even locks the bedroom door behind her, forcing Michael and Jacinda to watch through a tiny, restrictive sliver of visibility, trapping them in a voyeuristic nightmare as the horrifying reality slowly unfolds before their eyes. And then comes the exact moment that will allegedly shatter Michael's entire world into a million irreparable, jagged pieces. It seems like Willow will confidently approach the bedside and pull out a hidden, unmarked vial and a sterile syringe from her pocket. High chances are Jacinda will silently point a trembling finger, her eyes wide with sheer terror, confirming to Michael that this is exactly what she suspected all along. What if Michael feels the oxygen completely leave his lungs as he watches the woman he sleeps next to prepare a highly dangerous, unauthorized injection? The behind-the-scenes whisper suggests that this is not just any standard medication. This is the very paralytic drug used to keep Drew trapped in his own failing body, simulating a state of total paralysis to ensure he can never, ever expose her mounting crimes. The truth might be way more complicated. What if Willow whispers a twisted, sickeningly loving reassurance to Drew as she prepares the needle, highlighting the deeply disturbed, fractured state of her fragile psyche? The unconfirmed leak reveals that Michael, fighting through a massive wave of physical nausea and soul-crushing heartbreak, realizes he desperately needs undeniable, concrete proof to stop her. High chances are he slowly, agonizingly reaches into his pocket and pulls out his smartphone, activating the camera to record the entire sinister, unforgivable act. It seems like his hands will be shaking so violently that he can barely keep the digital lens focused on Willow's movements. What if this agonizing recording becomes the most dangerous, highly coveted piece of digital evidence in the entire city? The hush-hush rumor indicates that Michael watches through his glowing phone screen as Willow ruthlessly administers the paralytic drug, effectively torturing Drew to maintain her own fabricated, perfect reality. The truth might be way more complicated, as Michael's heartbreaking decision to film his wife rather than immediately bursting in to stop her speaks volumes about his sudden, terrifying realization that he is dealing with a dangerous monster who must be brought to justice at all costs. But in the unpredictable world of daytime drama, a flawless, perfectly executed plan is a total myth, and it seems like a devastating, careless mistake is about to ruin absolutely everything for our amateur sleuths. High chances are either Michael or Jacinda will make a tiny, almost imperceptible noise in the hallway, a scuffed shoe against the hardwood, a sharp, panicked intake of breath, or perhaps the faint electronic click of the phone's camera saving the video file. What if that microscopic, accidental sound echoes like a deafening gunshot in the dead silence of the room? The behind-the-scenes whisper teases the exact heart-stopping moment Willow freezes in her tracks, the empty syringe still clutched tightly in her hand. The truth might be way more complicated. Maybe Willow has developed a hyper-paranoid, animalistic awareness, her immense guilt making her acutely sensitive to the chilling feeling of being watched from the shadows. The unconfirmed leak describes a terrifying sequence where Willow slowly, mechanically turns her head, her darkened eyes locking directly onto the narrow crack in the door where Michael and Jacinda are hiding. It seems like time will completely stand still, as Willow realizes her darkest, most heavily guarded secret has just been exposed to the two people who possess the power to destroy her entire life. High chances are the look on Willow's face will rapidly transition from initial shock to sheer, unadulterated panic, and finally, to a terrifying, dead-eyed, murderous resolve. What if Michael tries to pull Jacinda away by the arm, desperately whispering that they need to run for their lives, but they are completely paralyzed by the sheer horror and disbelief of the situation? The hush-hush rumor implies that Willow's dark survival instincts will kick into maximum overdrive in a matter of milliseconds, overriding any lingering affection she has for her husband. The truth might be way more complicated. Willow is not just a scared, misunderstood woman caught in a lie. She is a desperate, hardened criminal whose entire existence and freedom are on the line, and she is fully prepared to cross any moral boundary to protect herself from the severe consequences of her action. The unconfirmed leak details a sudden, violent escalation that will undoubtedly leave viewers screaming at their television screens in pure shock. It seems like Willow will not hesitate for a single second, lunging toward the bedroom door with terrifying speed before Michael and Jacinda can successfully make their escape down the hall. High chances are she uses her intimate knowledge of the house layout and perhaps even the remaining potent medical supplies to orchestrate a brutal, inescapable ambush. What if she manages to aggressively corner them in a secluded, dead-end hallway, her physical demeanor completely unhinged and unrecognizable? The behind-the-scenes whisper suggests that Willow might actually physically attack them, wielding a heavy decorative object, or perhaps even utilizing another massive dose of the paralytic drug to swiftly subdue them both. The truth might be way more complicated. Maybe Willow uses Michael's lingering love and profound shock against him, feigning a tearful breakdown to get close enough to strike a devastating, treacherous blow, knocking both him and Jacinda completely unconscious on the floor. Once they are fully incapacitated and helpless, it seems like Willow will firmly cross the ultimate, unforgivable point of no return in her character's history. High chances are, she realizes she cannot simply leave them there to wake up, call the police, and ruin her life with that damning video evidence. What if she drags their limp, unconscious bodies to a hidden, highly secure location, perhaps a forgotten, soundproof basement, an abandoned, off-the-grid storage unit, or a remote, decaying cabin that absolutely no one in town knows about? The hush-hush rumor indicates that Willow will shockingly transition into a full-fledged, calculating kidnapper, aggressively imprisoning her own husband and Jacinda to permanently prevent them from releasing the truth to the authorities. The truth might be way more complicated. Willow might actually delusionally believe she is doing this out of twisted love to protect her family, her fractured logic convincing her that keeping Michael locked away in the dark is the absolute only way to preserve their sacred marriage and keep him from making a terrible mistake. The unconfirmed leak paints a terrifying, deeply unsettling picture of Willow returning to her normal, everyday life, seamlessly slipping right back into the demanding role of the devoted mother and caring, innocent wife, while secretly holding two human beings hostage in brutal conditions. It seems like she will orchestrate a brilliant, chillingly thorough cover-up for their sudden, unexplained disappearance. High chances are, Willow will expertly forge fake text messages from Michael's personal phone, claiming he needed to take a highly urgent, last-minute business trip and brought Jacinda along to assist with the workload. What if she even intentionally stages a fake, loud argument in public prior to the kidnapping to give Michael a highly plausible, believable reason for storming out of town? The behind-the-scenes whisper suggests that Willow's terrifying ability to lie with a perfectly straight face will reach unprecedented, sociopathic levels that will make viewers' blood run cold. The truth might be way more complicated. Perhaps the immense psychological toll of managing her desperate captives, keeping Drew continuously drugged, and lying to every single person around her will eventually cause Willow's fragile mind to fracture completely into a million pieces. It seems like the perfect, pristine facade will not hold up forever, and soon, the people closest to Michael and Jacinda will inevitably realize that something is horribly, tragically wrong. Hi, chances are, the fake, forged text messages will painfully lack Michael's usual tone and vocabulary, or a missed, highly important family milestone will trigger massive, unavoidable alarm bells across town. What if a desperate, frantic, citywide search begins, tearing the community apart as loved ones frantically try to trace Michael and Jacinda's last known steps before they vanished into thin air? The hush-hush rumor indicates that Willow will actively, brazenly participate in the official search efforts, crying perfectly on cue for the cameras, handing out missing persons, flyers, and playing the role of the terrified, abandoned, heartbroken wife to absolute, sickening perfection. The truth might be way more complicated. Willow might strategically use her trusted position inside the search party to actively sabotage the ongoing police investigation, subtly steering the detectives away from the actual truth and ensuring her hidden, nightmarish dungeon remains entirely undiscovered. Meanwhile, the unconfirmed leak gives us a grim, harrowing glimpse into the absolute hell Michael and Jacinda will endure while trapped in captivity. It seems like they will wake up in a dark, freezing, terrifying environment, securely bound and completely at the mercy of a woman they no longer recognize as human. Hi, chances are Michael will desperately try to reason with Willow during her secret, terrifying visits, begging her through tears to remember the beautiful family they built together, pleading for her to stop this escalating madness before it ends in an irreversible tragedy. What if Willow responds with a chilling, deadpan calmness, softly explaining that she is doing all of this for their own good, that they selfishly forced her hand by snooping where they absolutely did not belong? The behind-the-scenes whisper suggests that Jacinda might be the one silently plotting a violent escape, quickly realizing that reasoning with a full-blown psychopath is a completely futile effort, and their only real hope of survival is to ruthlessly fight back against their deranged captor. It seems like this drastic, monumental storyline shift will completely redefine Willow's character for the rest of television history, entirely erasing any lingering traces of the innocent, sweet girl we all once knew and loved. High chances are, as the external pressure massively mounts and the police inch dangerously closer to uncovering the horrific truth, Willow will become increasingly volatile, unpredictable, and lethal. What if she suddenly realizes that she cannot possibly keep Michael and Jacinda hidden away forever, and a much darker, highly permanent, bloody solution begins to firmly take root in her fractured mind? The hush-hush rumor implies that the stakes will rapidly reach terrifying life-or-death levels, with Willow standing at a horrifying crossroads. Release her hostages and face a miserable lifetime, rotting in a prison cell, or brutally silence the witnesses for good to permanently protect her freedom and her children. The truth might be way more complicated, as the writers seem to be meticulously setting up an explosive, high-stakes, adrenaline-fueled rescue mission that will undoubtedly leave every single viewer completely breathless and begging for more. And that is exactly where the leaked documents abruptly, frustratingly end, leaving us staring blindly into the dark abyss of this terrifying, unprecedented narrative. What if Willow has already coldly decided that Michael and Jacinda are simply expendable collateral damage in her twisted, selfish quest for self-preservation? High chances are the sweet, angelic, perfect facade has permanently, violently shattered, revealing a ruthless monster who will stop at absolutely nothing to keep her bloody secrets buried in the dark. If you honestly think this story is going to end with a tearful, heartfelt apology and a clean slate for the couple, you are vastly, dangerously underestimating the pure darkness that has taken root in this town. Watch your backs, ladies, lock your doors tight, and keep a very close eye on the quiet, sweet ones, because the next time Willow smiles warmly at you, it just might be the absolute last thing someone ever sees.